Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Mind Body Musings podcast. This is your host, Madeline Moon, and I am here with my dear friend, Dominick Quartuccio, who I have had on the podcast before. I forget which episode it is, but I will make sure that I link it in the show notes to this. So this is his second appearance. Dominick is the co-host of the Great Man Within podcast, a show for high-performing men exploring the realms of purpose, masculinity, and sex. He leads two men's communities. One is the Great Man Mastermind, a US-based community of 20 high-performing men living their purpose and designing their future. The second one is the Great Man Within Facebook group, a global community of hundreds of men doing inner work. He is also an international speaker and two-time author of Design Your Future and On Purpose Leadership. His mission is to lead 10 million men to live their potential over the next 10 years. I fucking adore this man. I love this man. This man has such amazing, stellar leadership. And our podcast that we did before was about how to make your goals lighter and your love darker. And it was so good. And we're doing something new today. We're going to be treated to a really fun type of episode where we're actually taking all of your questions, ye women of the Mind Body Musings listenership, and we're going to be sending them to Dom to answer for us. Dom is going to Dom our questions about sex today. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Matt. You know, first of all, I have to tell you how envious I am of how fluidly and easily you just drop into podcast host status. Like we were talking and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm gonna hit record, boom. And then you just go right in and do this flawless introduction. You can tell that you've been doing this for a while because I've been doing mine for 2 years. I still don't have skills like that. So just need to call that out.
Thank you. You know, it's interesting though. Like I receive that, I receive, and I don't always do it so fluidly. It's a testament to the chemistry of two people who can drop in together, I believe, because sometimes I'm like, whoa, welcome to the podcast. So not clear. It really depends on the connection. So thank you.
I feel that too. Yeah. So it sounds like, and one of the things that maybe some of your listeners who have listened to our episodes in the past is you came on my show and you did one of the most popular episodes that we've ever had called 5 Ways That Men Lose Credibility with Women. And I know you repurposed that for your show. So hopefully your listeners have heard it, but I mean, we have over 170 episodes now, I think, on the Great Man Within podcast. And ever since your episode aired, it's been in the top 10 and has stayed in the top 10. So yeah, that's a testament to, and one thing I wanted to say about that, Madeline, maybe you remember this, the day that you showed up for that interview, you were dealing with a migraine and it was a pretty bad one. You remember?
Yeah, I remember. It was an ocular migraine.
Yes, an ocular migraine. I remember, and you let us know about it before the show. We were like, hey, do you want to reschedule? And you checked in with yourself and you're like, no, I feel like I can go and do this. And not only did you do it, but like you dropped some dimes on us. And like the testament is just how many times it's been downloaded and shared. So even when you are in the midst of an ocular migraine, you still got it.
Thank you. I hope that's written on my gravestone one day. Yeah, that was such a beautiful episode. And that was one of the most, immediately commented on podcasts when I released that on my podcast. So many men out of nowhere that I did not know listened to the show. Were like, thank you. And I was like, oh, there's men here. Hi, welcome. Where are you? Come out more.
I get it. So here's what I've learned, especially as like I've started to engage with my Instagram audience. Like I never really had built an audience there. It was more of like a personal page than a business one. Since I've started really honing in on my message on my Instagram, it's the women who comment. It's the women who share. The guys are lurking and they're watching, but they're not commenting as much. And I just launched a Facebook group to support men. It's men only. It's called the Great Man Within podcast Facebook group. And the guys in there are active. Like they talk in there. So it's like when dudes are around other dudes, it's like time to talk. But when they're like in this public space, there's only, there are far fewer men who are willing to comment and share, at least in my lived experience thus far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And especially with the work that I do, I'm writing in the point of view of women. I'm writing using like your womb space, your yoni, everything is about women, body and anatomy. And I've been more conscious of that recently, of wanting to be more inclusive to everyone, even if they're not commenting. I know they're lurking, and I want them to feel that this, like, the intimacy work that is living on this page is about all.
Yeah, without losing the strength of how you've been talking, right? I mean, like one of my first experiences with that was joining Marie Forleo's B School. I know that you're an ambassador, or have been an ambassador in the past of her B School. I was like one of, I don't know, like 2% of men at the time. It was like 5 years ago. And I didn't know if I belonged there, because I was welcome, but I didn't know if I could comment. I didn't know if I could share, because it seemed like it was mostly a community for women. And I loved that it was, but even just like a nugget every once in a while to be like, hey guys, to the men in here, we see you. You know what I mean? Like, don't be shy. Tell me what you're getting from this. How can we make you feel more involved? And I would have loved it, just a little bit more of that.
Yeah, that's great feedback. It's really good to keep in mind and remember. So now on to what we're talking about today. Really excited about this. Dominick made this beautiful, short and sweet, perfectly 1 minute. I mean, so on the mark, 1 minute exactly video saying, hey guys, I'm coming on to Maddie Moon's podcast. What do you want me to talk about? What questions do you have for me? So we're going to be pulling some of the best questions. I actually have about 25 listed here. So we're going to I'm going to see whatever ones I go with. I don't know exactly which ones. They're all so good. But I do know question number 1. So Dominick, are you ready for your very first question of the day?
Yeah, well, I better ground my feet, take a deep belly breath, and now hit me with it.
All right. This is a 2-parter.
So aren't they all?
We'll take our time. We'll ease on in. We'll massage this one. Okay. So I took 2 people's questions and I'm putting them together. How to be in a relationship with a more feminine man? So that's the main question, is how do I be in a relationship? I'm assuming what she's asking is a polarity filled relationship with a more feminine man. And then another question I want to bring into this, just to keep in mind, there's a woman who says she is with a partner who has been doing TRT, which is for low testosterone, helping boost low testosterone.
Sure.
And he's stopped taking it. And so his emotions are very, very high. And he gets angry and he gets frustrated, and she's trying to allow him to have his own feelings while also her feeling feminine. Yeah. And I believe these are the same question, because low T is typically very feminine and very emotional, and that can be expressed as anger. And anger is actually a very, very, very feminine emotion. And then that goes in hand with just the idea of being with a more feminine man. So what do you got?
Fascinating. Okay. So let me ask you a question, Madeline. When you read the question of how do I be in a relationship with a more feminine man, do you get the feeling that whoever asked the question feels like she's happy inside that relationship?
Mm-mm.
No.
Mm-mm. No.
And why do you feel that way?
The question feels like, here I am, how do I make this work? It's not expansive. It's trying to get, the way I see relationships is there's the lower chakra and then the higher chakras.
Okay.
And it feels like she's just trying to get the lower chakras satiated. Like, let's just like make this work instead of thrive in it. And thriving lives in the upper chakras. That's where you reach ecstasy. So it really feels like, it's kind of close to home for me too, though. I've been in, well, thanks for interviewing me.
Well, this is all just me buying time to figure out what the hell I'm going to say. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I've been in relationship with a lot of very feminine men.
Have you?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay.
Mostly. I mean, I would say,
Mostly.
yeah, for sure.
Why is that?
So, but I believe a big part of it is that I deeply crave nurturing. And it's part of my own mission here on earth is to be my own greatest nurturer. Because when I'm finally nurturing myself the way I want a lover to nurture me, I'll stop seeking my partner to be the nurturer.
Hmm.
But habitually, I keep finding myself in that situation where I'm with men who are excellent at nurturing. So they've got like that inner mother archetype. And the shadow side of it is all the shadow side of the feminine: codependency, manipulation, an outpour of emotions. And if they're not harmonizing that feminine energy they have with their own breath work, masculine leadership work, then it's just me being in relationship with another feminine being. And
right.
so my job has been to really learn how to nurture myself, my own inner mother, inner nurture lover, and get comfortable with my own yearning. Because sometimes even being the feminine being in the feminine is really scary,
Yep.
and that's another block for a lot of women.
See, I think you answering that question illuminates potentially some answers for whoever asked the question, because if you found yourself in these relationships with more feminine men over and over, it's because there's something about that you like. And for you, it's been that nurturing, that desire to be nurtured. The way I heard her question was, I'd rather him be more masculine and he's feminine. So what do I do about that? Mm-hmm. And I think like the first place to go with it is exactly where you just did, which is, okay, well, what about your needs has caused you to attract a man who's more feminine in nature, right? Like, what is it about him that brought him into your life? And is this a unique situation, or is it more patternistic like yours, where like you found yourself repetitively in more feminine situations, or with men who are more feminine? And I do also take the stance that you do, because we've done a lot of polarity work together, assuming that you are a feminine woman. If this is what you're asking, if you're a more feminine woman and you want your man to be more masculine, then you probably want to ask yourself the question, why did I end up my relationship with this guy in the first place? And is this his essence, right? Is his feminine nature more of his essence? Like, is this really who he is most at his core? Or is there something more masculine in his essence that hasn't yet been fully developed because maybe he hasn't done the work? And then the question becomes, are you now going to be the person who tries to change him? And that could also be another pattern in your life about, let me find something about a guy, his potential, whether it's like he's not making enough money, or maybe he's too feminine, or maybe he's not oriented in his career enough. And I'm going to be the person who makes the difference and lead him there. I think those are probably some first places to start answering that question.
So good. So good. And there's so many layers to this, because also, what is your definition of a feminine man? Someone who shows emotion once or twice and that irritates you because he cries every once in a while, or someone who doesn't know how to lead. Maybe he's actually leading you very well and he feels his feelings deeply. And perhaps you are a feminine woman deep in your core, but on your surface, you struggle with feeling feelings. You get triggered when you see he has emotions. There's so many different. Big. The last thing I'll say about this is, I've noticed in my own life that, and I talk about this a lot on podcasts. I just had a podcast I released about the feminine yearning, the yearning to be filled. When we feel, I'm going to use the word needy. When women feel we want attention, we get really scared because it feels like neediness, and that's been shamed. So it also feels very powerful to be the masculine one in the relationship, because your partner, he gets to be the needy one who wants you. So you get to be the masculine. You don't have neediness because your partner is feminine. And so you choose to be in these relationships time and time again where you're with a feminine partner who's more on the edge of needy because they're feminine. That's what the feminine is. It's yearning for more love. And you're far away from that because you're actually just so uncomfortable with your own yearning.
Hmm. So it's almost like you're forcing yourself into a more masculine role to get out of that yearning by allowing someone else to yearn in your place, like a surrogate yearner.
What I do, I've noticed that because
Okay.
then the minute I'm actually in the feminine, I'm yearning for him. And
Hmm.
then I'm like, oh my God, am I needy? So I have to do needy shadow work. I have to come back into communion with my own inner needy, messy archetype, like the needy, like, I don't know, 18-year-old crushing on her first college boyfriend, calling him at 3 a.m. Make friends with her again, because she's
Yeah.
your key for you being in a relationship with a masculine man.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it.
Okay, cool. Let's see. Next question. How do I get my nice guy to stop being so nice?
Yeah. I think this is like it's almost like a similar flavor, right? Of the same question that we kind of went into, which is, it sounds like Mr. Nice Guy is almost more feminine in nature again. Here's one of the things that I've had a chance to see in working with men who would categorize themselves as Mr. Nice Guy, guys who have been friend zoned. There's oftentimes a lot of shame around being Mr. Nice Guy, shame around being the guy who's been friend zoned. You know, one of the biggest things that I talk about that drives a lot of our lives as humans is obviously fear, right? This concept of drift I talk about all the time on our show. For men specifically, one of the biggest fear factors that they're unconscious to is this fear of emasculation, right? Like having your man card stripped away from you. Esther Perel talks about this. She says, you know, for men, masculinity isn't something that's just inherent to who you are. It seems to be this construct that you have to go out and earn and then vigilantly maintain over the course of life's actions, right? Like a man can lose his man card by not finishing his beer in front of a group of guys, right? Like and so we fight over and over again on a daily basis to be considered a man. And it's kind of fragile. Like masculinity can be fragile. Like trust is fragile. Spend your whole life building trust. You do one thing to break someone's trust, and then it's like it could be gone forever, right? Masculinity often works like that too. So I share that with whoever asked the question or whoever else has that kind of question about this Mr. Nice Guy, because I know he can be fucking frustrating. Can I say fucking on this podcast?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, of course I can. Like I know what it's like to be around guys who don't make a decision. You know, it's like, where do you want to go? Or they don't have boundaries, or they don't have their own values. And like, I get frustrated with them too. But the first place I want to start is there's most likely some real shame that he's carrying around about that, because society is not very nice to Mr. Nice Guys. They're not. Get put down all the time. And I've had men confide in me that, you know, in times where their feminine partner has called them out on it, it can be one of the lowest moments that they experience. So I share all of that as kind of like the backdrop, just for maybe some more compassion at first. And having said that, one of the things that Madeline, you are so gifted at is revealing the truth of your heart. And this comes through the practice, you know, that we've done together with John Wineland and Dada's work, is like you can reveal the truth of your heart in this incredibly compassionate way where I can feel what you want without making me feel like I'm incapable of providing it. That makes sense? So like one of the examples I'll give to you, and this is one that we had a breakout assignment for one of John Wineland's assignments. It was like, Dominick, describe your ideal living situation. Okay. Like when you end up in an ideal relationship situation with your future partner, how do you want it to go down? And then I had to describe it to you and like another woman on Zoom and you had to give me reactions as I went and described it. And I remember talking about how I wanted to have this big mansion with 3 bedrooms. I have my bedroom, you have your bedroom, and then there's like this one bedroom that we like get to sleep in together on Fridays and Saturdays or something like that. And when I described that I want my bedroom and then like I want you to have your bedroom, you just kind of went like, blah! Like you were like, blah! And there was like a laugh to it, but it was so raw and honest. And it wasn't like I was disgusting. You just like showed your repulsion in a playful way that made me like very much realize that like you didn't want to be that, like you didn't want your partner to be that distant from you. And it was just so clear without words, just an emotion that like woke me up. And it actually caused me to think quite a bit from that point forward. Like that was like a year ago. And I've actually changed my ideal living situation based on that feedback that you gave me in a heart opened way. So I would say for the women who are dealing with men who are the Mr. Nice Guy, there are ways to reveal when he's doing something that feels really powerful to you and like promote that, praise that, shower with that. So like he knows how to, like that can grow. And when he's showing up other than that, can there be a way of revealing without triggering that shame mechanism that is most likely inherent in there over a lifetime of being called Mr. Nice Guy?
My entire body is like hot and like in the best way. Like I honestly feel turned on when I hear about revealing and making each other better through the art of revealing. And this idea of rewarding and then revealing. There's no punishing. It's rewarding, revealing, revealing. And it's such a powerful way to be in relation, is to when your partner does something you like and you love, you shower with claps, with praise, with a smile, with a kiss. Like you just show what's happening on the inside, on the outside. And then when they do something that doesn't feel so right, here's an example. Here's another example. When I'm intimate with someone and they're not making eye contact with me, I could go, like get mad and like further cause shame in them for not doing it quote right. Or I could go, come back to me.
I knew that's exactly what you were gonna do, because like I knew how you would handle that, and when that happens, like it makes me want to come back. Yes.
And then when they come back, you go,
yes, that too. Yeah. So like the little and then the relief. It's like these gentle little nudges of reinforcement. Man, like one of the things that I don't know if you've done this, but like it would be a service to your listeners for you to even show them your practice. Like what are some of the key themes that like your audience struggles with? And like, I could even act that out with you, because like people need to see how you do this. Like you, and we talked about Nicolette, who's one of the other folks in John's shops, like are masterful. And the two of you have evoked in me behaviors that I didn't know I was capable of, because you guided me along the way. That was the whole premise of our last episode together on your show, or maybe our first one, which was around making my love darker. Like there is this dark side inside of me that women have been calling for, but I haven't known how to let it out because I've been like told it's not okay. And then like when you helped me to reveal it, and the other practice partner, it brought out something inside of me that had been longing to come out, but I needed that evocation.
I just got a great idea. You should come into the Sisu Society with me, and we should do a practice in there.
Done.
Would that be great? Okay, cool.
Done.
I think that'd be great. So I've had this thought as well of like how much I would love to, because I talk about it and talking is helpful, but you're right. There needs to be a seeing, and it also sounds super fun just to do this in that sacred space. Okay. Whew, that was so great. How do I let the man lead in the beginning when I'm so excited? I'm eager and excited.
Yeah. How do I let him lead in the beginning?
That's a great question.
Yeah, this is good. And I'm just trying to like envision what her excitement, how that may like override his ability to lead. So maybe like, here's what I'm picturing. And then Madeline, maybe you can even, if there's examples from your life too, bring this in. I'm picturing she's so excited, like, let's get together, and she picks the restaurant. Let's get together. She picks the date. She wants, here's what we're going to be doing. And because of her enthusiasm, and it sounds like that it's feeling good to her, he just says yes. And so like her enthusiasm is like such a yes to him that over time it becomes the default. That's kind of what I'm hearing. how are you, I mean, are you interpreting the question the same way?
I am. And I'm also thinking about the dating app Bumble and how Bumble always starts with a woman reaching out first. Someone else asked that question of how do I let the man take charge after I'm the one who starts the conversation in the dating app, which I completely understand. That's for a bit of time I struggled with that on Bumble, and then I just deleted Bumble and I worked on myself. And I had other dating apps, I believe, but they were ones where men reached out. And now I'm on it, and it's a different experience that I'm having actually.
Okay. Sorry.
That's how I see that's how I see the question. Or just like, maybe, if a man is really in his purpose, if he's in his masculine, he's going to be in his purpose. And so perhaps these men aren't prioritizing relationship and dates as quickly as her heart is prioritizing the dates and relationship.
Interesting. Yeah. Or maybe a man is like a slower burn. I know that I certainly am, like at the very early stages. For me, intimacy takes some time to build. And so like I get more enthusiastic as it goes along. But I would say maybe the game for this woman is take that same enthusiasm that you're using to lead the relationship, which is, maybe like calling the shots on the dates and where you're going to be going, and channel that enthusiasm into evoking his leadership, right? Like, so like a part of that could be like, I'm so excited to see the place that you pick out for us on Friday night. Or, I can't wait to know where we're going next. Or I can't wait to see whatever it is, like maybe if he's a gift giver, I can't wait to see what kind of thing you surprise me with next. Like, take the enthusiasm, channel it into evoking his enthusiasm versus leading. And in essence, you're still leading, but like he's now leading the dynamic, like leading the steps in the relationship. I think that could be, I would respond well to something like that.
How do you respond when a woman is consistently asking you out or proposing date ideas? What do you feel in your body when that happens?
Well, so I'm much more masculine oriented, right? Like I like to be the one who leads. So in my body, and I've had this before, yeah, I get this, like, I feel this knot in my chest and a weight in my stomach. That's kind of like slow it down, slow down. I've got this. Like, and when I say I've got this, it's not that like, I'm not listening to you. It's I'm listening to you and I'm going to be leading this here. Right. And so like when I'm getting peppered with all these messages or if I write a message on text and then she just blasts me back within 15 seconds every single time I send a message, even when I have like 2-hour delays, like that stuff is just like, slow it down. Cause I feel like maybe even enthusiasm early in the relationship there can show up in blowing up a guy's inbox. And I've certainly known, like I've been guilty of this too, when I've gotten really enthusiastic at the beginning, that doesn't carry over long-term. If you're blasting back and forth, it sets you up for like a failure at some point when things start to die down. And it can be experienced as like a loss or like a disconnection, when in actuality, it's just, you just couldn't keep up that pace anymore.
Yes. I'm going to say something that is opinionated for myself, I guess. I'm just going to make a stance on something that I'm realizing right now.
Do it.
One, I don't blow up men's phones at all. I barely text anymore. That is a very big difference between me now and me 4 years ago. I don't text much at all. And it's because I'm hardworking. I'm on the computer a lot. I'm on the phone a lot. I don't want to be on it at all. Even if I'm crazy about someone, when I'm not working, I want to be off. I want to read a book, watch a movie, because I trust that whatever relationship is meant for me, it's coming. Whether it's the one with the guy currently in my phone or a date I'll be in a year or two, I am not blowing up anyone's phone ever. And most of the times I'm actually receiving the text first and I respond.
Yeah.
And my responses are a combination of what we're talking about. When they text me first, Like I had someone that I've been seeing right now, and he sent me something, and I just sent him a message back saying, I love it so much when you text me in the morning. It brightens my whole day. Butterfly emoji. I just immediately was like, I love that you did that. Do it again, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's like, you know, I'm turning Om Rupani, this amazing sub-dom teacher, talks about how when a woman turns on the green light in a man, the green light that says, I'm doing something right, she looks up to me, he will go to the ends of the earth for her.
Sure.
So my one of my feminine desires in relationship is to turn that green light on.
Yes.
I want to turn the green light on. I reward. I say thank you. And I also give space and read the room. But I don't pursue anymore. I don't. I know where that leads. And that's one of the stances that I'm sharing here. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with pursuing at all. This is just me. I don't wanna. I don't wanna. I want to be pursued, and then I want to shower with rewards and praise for that. It's not a one-way street. That's coming towards me, and then I'm giving it right back, and it's coming, and I'm giving it right back. It's a dance. But the obsession, the chasing a man, the grasping on to a relationship is not something I do in my life. And I also, with one little caveat, I understand I'm not in the ends of my pregnancy days. That's a whole different conversation. I don't know what that feels like to be 34, 35 and actually be in that stance of needing a man. Then that's very different. So I also just want to state that that's different. It's a different kind of category.
Well, I think first of all, I love your stance and your evolution, and thank you for sharing it. This dynamic of like where you started with the Bumble, which puts the onus in the woman's hands first, and then what do we do there? And then you were talking about maybe a woman who's nearing the end of her childbearing years and wants, and so there's more urgency. You know, I think what both of those situations offer up is a really cool challenge and dynamic to actually be more fluid in our masculine and feminine styles. Like just because something starts off more masculine in nature, like Bumble putting, like the first move in your hands, or maybe a woman who's pursuing first, doesn't mean that you can't transition from that, right? It's just I think there needs to be an awareness of, okay, this is the design of that particular technological platform, or this is the design of like where I am in my childbearing years with my urgency. And then like, I'm going to start, but I also know how to flip the script. It's just kind of like, in sexuality, right? Like some of the greatest doms and subs know how to take on both roles, and learning how to play that game and how to direct and guide and lead. That's what I feel like leads to mastery.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so good. So beautiful. Okay. Okay. So many good questions here.
Madeline makes the best noises. If you haven't noticed.
Okay. This is the next question. What things are hurtful to a masculine being done by a feminine, and how it shows? How it shows. I'm not sure exactly what the how it shows mean. I'm perhaps, I don't know what how it. Do you know what how it shows means?
I feel like I have an inkling, but so the question here is like, what would hurt a masculine man in from the feminine side? Something that came up for me recently, in a dynamic with a woman that like I had started something with, and then I would say energetically, and you taught me this term, Madeline, is energetically dropped her, right? Like we had something that came on strong, came on fast. There was chemistry. We slept together, and after sleeping together, I recognized that I had hesitations of sleeping with her beforehand, but I was still more of a yes than a no. And then afterwards, it became more of a no. Not like immediately afterwards, but it like kind of dissolved down. And instead of communicating that to her the next time we saw each other, we just weren't physical. And I didn't do what I needed to communicate to her that my feelings had changed. Like I dropped the ball there, and that was on me. And we eventually ended up having a conversation where she expressed her feelings to me. And what hurt was, instead of expressing how she felt, it was much more of a, here's who you are, Dominick, and here's what you did, and here's how you're a hypocrite, and here's how you don't practice what you preach. It was much more of like an indictment on my character versus how my behaviors made her feel. And that started to hurt. And I could feel my blood starting to boil, because there was a lot of stuff there that like I didn't agree with, a lot of her own responsibility that she wasn't taking, right? Like there was much more of like a victimization and perpetrator type of like scenario that was being set up. And she has codependent stuff that she ends up sharing with me as well. And we ended up in a beautiful ending to the conversation where we both took ownership. But if I was a less practiced man and I'd heard some of these things about like me, and there was no ownership on her part, that not only would have hurt, like it would have hurt me, but I would have pushed her away. I could have gotten angry and had a non-productive conversation. So I feel like in the past, what has hurt me the most have been those situations where, as a human being, I'm going to disappoint you. Like I'm going to do the wrong thing or say the wrong thing or not show up in the way that you expected me to. And where I get hurt is when it's made about like my character versus how it made you feel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love this one. And it ties into a very collective issue that is happening right now with men and with women. And there's so many reasons why women are hurt and upset and healing. And that stands on its own. There's a lot going on there that's very sensitive territory, trauma, abuse, that should be nurtured. And alongside that, there is also a chronic disapproval of men that many women have.
Yeah.
It's a chronic disapproval. And that goes back into the green light, red light, that we are turning on a bunch of red lights with our disapproval. And it's making more and more men either get defensive, the exact thing we don't want, walk away, the exact thing we don't want, give up, the exact thing that we just can't have on planet Earth. And I think women are forgetting how fucking like crucial our love is, both to the world and to men and to each other and to other women.
Yes.
It's actually turning that green light on, whether or not they deserve it always, or they're the perfect human, they reach our expectations. What small green light can you just flicker on for a moment for them? And what does that take from you to be love and to love? What does that really take from you? Nothing. It never takes anything away from you to give someone love and compassion in a moment, especially when they fucked up, when they feel shame, when they drop the ball. Because at the core of every human being, I believe, is the desire to do good. Most every human being, at least. And communication is the way that we get there, and holding space for two things to be true at once. You drop the ball and you're human and you're learning, and same for her,
Absolutely. Yes. So you nailed it. There's nothing else I could add to what you just said that would that would elevate it at all. So here's one more thing that I would add to the answer to that question about like, what could you do to harm a masculine man? 3 words: be a man. Right? When you drop the be a man thing on a guy, now there are times where a guy needs to hear that, but like we're talking about, like, these are the nuclear launch codes. Okay. Like you don't pull them out often, and oftentimes there's plenty of better things to say, but I know, like, we go back to this conversation about emasculation. Most men do not even know the game that they're playing in their lives is avoiding being emasculated, because it is so central to our belonging in this world. If we are not a man, that means we can't get the woman we want. If we're not a man, we don't get the respect of other men. If we're not a man, then we can't ever ascend to levels of influence and authority. And constantly our masculinity is under attack. When you say, be a man, you have basically told him that he's not one. And when he's not one, he feels emasculated and shameful. I've seen guys, good men, who are of the most peaceful guys, tear up their apartments after having been told to be a man, punching through walls because it hurts that deeply. And I'm not saying that there's never a time that needs to be pulled out, but man, you better be ready for a reaction. You better be ready for some repercussions, whether it's directly like in front of you, or he may lock away the key to his heart forever because he feels unsafe around you. So just recognize those 3 words, be a man, and how much power they can, and destructive power they can have in a man's life.
Wow. Thank you so much for bringing that up. That's so fucking crucial and important. Like women hold so much of the power and the leadership, even though if we're not the ones actively leading, we are. And so our weapons can be used for good or for evil. And that's one of those phrases. Before I was doing all of this work 5 years ago, I was saying that willy-nilly. I didn't know. I remember one time one of my boyfriends was like, I was sleeping on his side of the bed. And he was like, get off my side of the bed. And I go, man up.
Yeah.
And like, I was joking, laughing, kinda. There was a little bit of seriousness in there because he was a very, very, very emotional feminine boyfriend. Yep. And there was like a subconscious, especially that's something to notice if you're with a feminine man and you're not totally aware of your own verbiage and you're still flirting with the whole be a man verbiage. That's going to come out because you're not actually dealing with those relationship dynamics on the deepest level. So that might come out of your mouth. And that, of course, too, takes that feminine man into even more shame.
Yes.
And it's not good for you as well to put your partner in that category. Sometimes I think that's a big issue too, of like putting our partners in the category of being a feminine man.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Even that. Yeah. It's a great point. I mean, Madeline, what would be the flip side to this, for a man saying what he says to a woman? Is it, like one of the things that I learned from having the Red School on our podcast, the women who've written Wild Power, they came on and did the man's guide to the menstrual cycle. We just had them on to do a man's guide to menopause. They teach women how to live their life in accordance with their menstrual cycles. They're fantastic. You got to follow them on Instagram. And one of the things that they said that is the most humiliating thing that a man can say to a woman is like to tell her that she's crazy when she's going through either a stage of menopause or going through a stage of her cycle. To not take her seriously is like the most humiliating thing that you can do towards a woman. I'm curious, like so I'm just looking kind of like for a counter example for be a man or man up so that women can feel it. Like what's been something like that in your life?
I like the crazy one. That one doesn't ring so true for me because I've actually never been called crazy in my life. I speak to this in my women's groups because I know that's a thing, but I was more of the repressive, quiet one. I wasn't the like, bah. Yeah. So for me though, something that comes to mind is stop being so sensitive. That to me is like a knife in the womb. And that's what my dad told me all the time growing up. Stop being so sensitive. You're so goddamn sensitive. Like, I love you, Dad. You're amazing. I love you so much. But he did do that. And that to me is really like my goal in life is to resensitize. I want to be oozing with sensitivity. And now I have masculine men telling me like, on our phone calls or whatever, like people like you saying, I love your sensitivity.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's like, it's sweet, sweet honey to be praised. For any men listening, if you praise your woman or any woman in your life for her sensitivity, you're giving her such a gift. Yeah. So I think that's a similar one to me, than to man up is it's more about not being something, right? Like for men, it's like, be more of a man. And for women, it's stop being such of a woman. Women, that's why women's fears are like being too much. Because
Sure.
our counter one is you're too much.
Yes.
Whereas the man's is you're not enough.
There you go.
So interesting.
Yeah, that's a great insight. That is so true. Yeah, it's kind of blowing my mind right now. So for a man, it's like, stop being this. We need you to be that. And then it's for you. It's stop being that. It's like, we can't handle you.
Yeah, men, we need more of you. Women, we need less of you. Those are our wounds. That's what the world is telling us. That's really mind-blowing. I feel like we're going to have to sit with that one for a while.
Yeah, seriously. Okay,
let's pick one more, maybe like a lighter one. Something that's a little, there was one question about, okay. For a man, what different kinds of desires do you have? And how do they feel? So different flavors of desires. Let's get a little more specific. Flavors of desires for the feminine. What different flavors do you crave? And how do they feel when you get them?
Yeah. I don't know why this popped into my mind, but the first thing that came into my mind when that question was asked was, there was a time in my life where like I was the one guy who wanted to have sex with 1,000 different women to get the diversity of that. And then now I consider myself the guy who wants to have sex with one woman 1,000 different ways, because I recognize like the dynamism of, and I tend to go for like deeply feminine women. Like I love the ever-changing nature. I've learned to train my nervous system to handle like all the fluidity and showing up one way one day or one moment, completely different woman. And I've learned to love that and appreciate that. So for me, like certain desires that I have with feminine women in my life are, one of my desires is like kind of going on this like spelunking cave diving mission to find out like what makes her tick at her deepest of levels, like what turns her on, what gifts that she has that she's not fully aware of yet, and like diving in there and then just being like, do you recognize how fucking special your love is? Or do you fucking recognize how amazing that your attention feels when you give it to me? Do you recognize what your eye contact does? Do you recognize like that when you shine your light on something, it becomes like, it just grows, like those kinds of things. And so like being able to see her bloom through that, like I have a big desire around that. Another one of my big desires is to kind of like turn myself over to be cared for by her in her unique way. Like one of the things that I recognized as a guy that just like, I'm really self-sufficient. I've done the lone wolf thing. I know how to go off and be a rugged individualist and do, quote, everything on my own. And I can, live a pretty self-sustained life that way. But there's nothing like uniquely feminine nurturing given by an individual woman who has like her own specific skill in whatever way. And to turn myself over and be like, honey, I'm exhausted. I just went out and, slayed some dragon. I've got nothing left in the tank. I need you. Like, how can you take care of me? And to surrender fully to that, like and just to see what she would bring to me, and then lavish praise on everything that came. Like, that's definitely a fantasy. Like, it's like a fantasy of mine. You know what I mean? Because I don't think I've ever really fully articulated that way or turned myself over in that way.
Beautiful. And what I love them both. And what I love about that second one is there's such a switch that happens when women and feminine beings realize that they can leave the land of performance, porn type mentality, always trying to make the right sounds, look the right way, have the right body, leaving that so far behind in the dust, and actually realizing that you as a spiritual woman, you as a mother archetype or as a maiden archetype, just like the rawest form of being a woman, just you, and your humor and like the way you smile, all of that, you making a meal or ordering in a meal, just being fucking you. how that's what is craved by the masculine. It's you and more of you, like just more of whatever that I come from a very repressive background. So I was shy. I could barely speak up. I could barely talk. If I was starving on a date because we went to go just get crackers, I'm making this up, I wouldn't mention it. I wouldn't say anything. If I needed to pee, but his arm was around me while we're watching a movie, I would wait until I had to pee so badly I had to pop out of the chair. If I was uncomfortable, I wouldn't say anything. It was so much less of me.
Right.
And the thing that's more of me that I believe is what, like, it goes into what you're saying is your attitude, your personality, your desires, and then your unique gifts are born from that place.
100%.
So I love that you said that. And I have a little follow-up question on the first one.
Yeah.
When you said you want to be recognizing her for, how special it is when you look at me that way, how is it that would feel so good for her to respond to you?
Yeah. Great. Because there's a woman who we have kind of like an intimacy partnership is probably the best way of putting it. Like a woman that for the past 3 years has been my primary lover, and she's not into this personal development world. And I met her at a different time, but like we've grown together, and like, she's not going to read the books. She's not going to come listen to your podcast. She's not, like none of that stuff. And so like, I've constantly been working on figuring out how do I reach her? And it's been through like really well-placed recognition of her, of like what she does that's so special. And one of the things I recognized is like when she turns her attention on me and we're engaged sexually, like her love and her intimacy feels so special for me. Like it's nurturing. I can, if I have her for one night only for the next like week or two, I can feel fulfilled because of what she brings to me in that period, in just like that short period of time. And when I have shared that with her, the way that like it really makes me aware that she's received it is like, sometimes it's in the moment where she'll really stop. Like you could tell there's kind of like an interruption of whatever else was going on. And she'll just like lean across the table, grab my hand and be like, Dominick, thank you.
Mm.
And that's all, like, like no other words need to be said, but just like a Dominick, thank you. And then a looking into my eyes, and I can tell she's reflective. And then there are times where she'll message me the night after, the days after. And she'll be like, that thing that you said really struck a chord with me. So I'll know, that like it got in there and it's growing. Those are, and then finally, the biggest way is like just being more receptive to in the future, to stuff like that. So it comes in easier and faster and deeper. Yeah.
That is beautiful. I love hearing that so much. And it's easy to hear, make eye contact and say thank you and be like, oh yeah, that's easy. A lot of people do not do it. A lot of women do not do it, especially the eye contact of just taking a moment and like receiving a breath.
That breath is so important. Yep.
I breathe with the eye contact always, like that. And the breath when receiving a compliment is really, really, really needed. So I just wanted to point that out because I'm imagining that if a woman is, oh, thanks, like kind of hurrying past it or even fighting you on it, it becomes a little exhaustive to compliment her. And I would guess a bit of a turnoff.
Yeah.
Because you want her to see her own brilliance. You want to like give her the brilliance, and there's nothing inspiring about the martyr archetype of being like, oh, I'm not that great. No. I just, just the work I have to do in this life.
Yeah. Well, you're right. Because I mean, for me with her, it was for a while, I guess I wasn't saying it or articulating in a way where she really felt it for me. So for a period of time, it felt exhausting until like I learned how to refine my acknowledgement of her so that she could allow it in. And one more thing I wanted to share here, Madeline, because I remember you sent me one of the questions that you got from your listeners last night. One woman asked the question of, like, sometimes I'm worried about how my body looks when I'm having sex. Right. And like, does it, like, what's a guy thinking about? And this goes back to the point you were just making about, you know, the man wants you to be more of you, like fully more of you. Well, to answer her question, the number one thing that the man wants in bed from you is to witness that you are truly enjoying yourself, right? Like that you are fully receiving pleasure. There's nothing better to see a woman who is enjoying what it is that like I'm bringing to the equation, you know, and your ability to transmit that enters my body. There's something like if you think about like masculine people and feminine people, like the feminine can transmit something that can enter another person's body and they can feel that. You know, like if you're eating a brownie and it's really good and you're like, I can feel that in my body.
Yeah.
If a dude is eating a brownie, like, and he's really excited, like it doesn't enter another person's body the same way. Like women and feminine beings have a way of transmitting. And so when you're really in that in bed, that trumps everything, you know, whatever, like lighting you're under, whatever wrinkle is showing, what, you know what I mean? Whatever imperfection is on display. If you are enjoying yourself, that will wash away everything else.
Oh, yes. Oh my God. Yes. So much of this, like the position of sex now for me is like arms wide, mouth open, making sound, just more. Whereas used to, again, I wasn't generous with my own pleasure. I was quiet. I barely said anything. I was really in my head. And part of my path to get out of the head and into my body has been literally, it's so simple. It's been to make sound and just be generous with that. Because a lot of women, I know this particularly because of the Sisu Society, it's shared a lot. It's a huge struggle to make sound. Just even in your own, by yourself, doing cat cow. Like that is hard for a lot of women because it's not prim and proper and normal. So in sex, like women, I invite you to try a little experiment where you observe your partner's body language, face, breath when you're repressing your expression. And you're not moaning, you're not, widening your arms, you're not wiggling your torso, you're just really still and a little bit quieter, and watch him. See, does he look like he's in his own head? Or does he feel like he's really with you?
Yeah.
And then start to move your body, express your own pleasure. You can kind of even take charge of your own pleasure, move your hands around, make sound, and then watch him. Is he with you even more now? Or does he look like he's left his own head and he's now in his body and he's engaged with you? Just a little experiment. And then once you like realize this on your own by really feeling it and embodying these two different differences, these different states, then I think a nervous system shift will happen.
That's a great exercise. And I would love to be on the receiving end of that.
I think it's going to be great for everyone. Oh, Dominick, wow, this was so fun. This was
wasn't it?
Fun. So fun. We have to do this again. This is like, I don't know. I feel like a series coming on or something.
Seriously. And well, the next step is coming into Sisu Society, and I'm going to we'll do a little bit of practice.
Yeah.
So I do think it's important for people to witness this stuff. And like I've said many times before, you're masterful at it. And to give someone else an example of like, oh, that's how it looks. That's how it sounds. That's how he responds. I want that, so let's do it.
Yes, we're gonna do that, and then I'm gonna have other women practice with you too in it. So I think it'll be a great workshop, actually.
I mean, I used to work in corporate America for 15 years, and now I get to do this.
And you're so amazing at it. You're so skilled at it. It's like it's what you're made to do. It's to come into the Sisu Society and other women's practice groups and be this amazing practice man.
I will be the practice man. Bring me in.
Where can everyone connect with you online?
Number one thing that I would love is for you to come and listen to our show at the Great Man Within podcast. We have so many great episodes, like that allows you to get inside the minds and hearts of men. We talk about purpose, sexuality, masculinity, all of these conversations. And then Instagram is something that I've really started to take seriously over these last few months. putting out content regularly there. So at Dominick Q on Instagram, at Dominick Q. You could probably find me through Madeline. You know, she follows me, I follow her. And that's it.
Amazing. And I will have all of those links on the show notes to this episode, which is episode 320. Wow. Yeah. So you can find all those there. Do be sure to follow both of his podcasts and his Instagram. So much beautiful content. He's very generous with sharing his knowledge. Just constantly, you're creating wonderful, very useful content, both for women and for men. So thank you for the work that you do in the world. And I'm sending you so much love, and I can't wait to release this into the world. And please, everyone, let us know what you thought about this episode by commenting on the website. You can go to maddiemoon.com/Dominick-Quartuccio-2, because it's number 2. Very long one. You could just go to my website, you'll find it, or comment on the Instagram post. And we will see you all next Wednesday for another episode of the Mind Body Musings podcast.
See you.